Hey, welcome back to the channel. So for today's topic, we're going to go over the question, do comic issues really matter? The question gets brought up quite a bit, and I'm sure some of y'all have even asked yourselves that. So I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on the matter. So let's roll that intro and we'll go straight into it. So first of all, there's not a straight answer for the question, because there's different variables out there, and one of the variables is the comic even worth collecting? So take for instance this comic I have right here. This is the Amazing Spider-Man Last Remains, the 50 LR. So this comic can go for, let's just say, about 30 to 50 bucks on the market for a 9.8 graded comic. So it's not a very high demand comic at the moment. So if they were to come out with this on VeVe and they dropped $21,000 for the comic cover, that I would only assume that the demand will be low, and so that means the price is probably going to be low. Now with that being said, the physical price may be low, but that comic is being compared to a whole bunch of other comics that are out there on the world. So there is a established market for physical comics. Here on VeVe, the market is not established yet, and there is a chance where the demand for this particular comic could be a whole lot higher. And the reason why is because this is a Spider-Man comic. I have noticed on VeVe that there's a lot of Spider-Man fans, so you have to consider that most people on VeVe right now are not true comic collectors, so they're going to have a different viewpoint for some of these comics that are coming out on VeVe. So there is a chance that, even though I did mention that this is a cheap comic to obtain physically, that this comic could actually be a pretty expensive comic. So that's another variable to throw into there. Okay, so let's talk about Amazing Fantasy 15. This comic has not came out on VeVe yet. This is a very expensive physical comic. I'm talking about the highest grade goes for over $3 million. Let's just say they came out with 75,000 commons. That's right, 75,000. The average comic right now is 21,000 for commons. I will bet you that this common will still bring out some incredible numbers, and here's my reason why. So the very first reason for it would be demand. So people are not going to care that there's 75,000 issues out there. They will like this comic so much that they are willing to pay whatever they can afford. And so if the average person, let's just make up a number, let's just say the average person on VeVe is willing to spend $1,000 on a collectible or a comic that they really love. If that's the case, most likely the floor for this comic would go up to about $1,000. So these people are not going to care that there's 75,000 with the same cover. They don't care. It's not on the radar because all they want to do is have it in their showroom or have it in their portfolio. They want to show their friends, be able to tell people that, hey, I own this comic. This is something that I love. I love Spider-Man. This is the first issue. And they're willing to pay whatever they can afford. It's going to happen with some of these comics and collectibles. Now, it's not going to happen to all of them, obviously, but you have to remember that demand is going to be a big factor for some of them, and you have to kind of, I would say, get rid of the logical thinking as far as, man, there's 75,000 of them, there's no way this thing is going to get to this price. Because, like I mentioned, if they can afford to spend $1,000, they will spend $1,000 on that common. It's just the way it works, and it's been proven with other things. I'll give you an example since we're talking comics. Ultimate Fallout. A lot of them are in circulation. People were willing to spend up to $3,000 for that cover, and the reason why is because they can afford it, and they really wanted it. They're like, this is Miles Morales, this is his first appearance, we're going to buy it. And that's what they did. There was a lot of people talking that it was never going to hit these extreme prices, that, you know, it's just a inflated comic. So far, all those people have been wrong. So I can see it happening here on VeVe, and I've already seen it with some of the comics and collectibles. So if this was a 10,000 issue comic, obviously the price would be a whole lot higher, but I wanted to stress that high issues do not mean they're less desirable, because there's still going to be a demand for some of these Grail comics out there. So since we're talking about 10,000 issue comics, what if we had Squirrel Girl at 5,000 issues? Would you buy it? In my opinion, I don't think this is a good idea, unless you don't care about having a comic that's going to make you a lot of money if that's your end goal. So if you wanted this just because you love it, that's perfectly fine, but this is where I draw the line with scarcity. You have to have a market if you are trying to sell this comic, and if there's not a big enough market for it, it's probably not going to sell very well. So in the end, issue numbers do matter, but only to an extent. You must remember what you are buying. It is always good to do research for everything that you purchase, especially comics, and know the history behind the actual comic. If you do not do this, there is a good chance that you're going to get burned on the market. So in summary, issue numbers do matter, but it comes down to some of the variables that I mentioned, and there's actually probably even more variables out there that I did not mention on this video. It's just something that you need to really consider and research. As always, thank you for watching.